The top story at 9, Environmental Affairs Minister Nomvula Mokonyane's lawyers have issued a letter to the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Mokonyane says her rights have been violated as the Commission did not notify her that Agrizzi would implicate her. Mr. Agrizzi said yesterday that the facility and management company paid Mokonyane a monthly bribe of 50,000 rand over a number of years. Mr. Agrizzi is set to continue his testimony where he's expected to drop more names. Let's get more on this story now. SABC Senior Political reporter Mzwandile Mbeje joins us now live from Parktown in Johannesburg. Hey, Mzwai. So some prominent names being mentioned: Nomvula Mokonyane, Vincent Smith, MPs. Names, as we expected, were indeed dropped.
Absolutely plain. We expected certain names to be dropped, given what Agrizzi said last week when he took the stand, basically saying he was going to be implicating about 38 high-profile government people. So if you then saw the names of Minister Mokonyane and Vincent Smith, I guess it was not really too much of a surprise, because somehow we're expecting those names. But I guess Ms. Mokonyane would perhaps feel that she would need to have a right to reply, or rather to rebut some of the things that have been said about her. In terms of the rules of the commission, Blaine, if she feels aggrieved and then she feels she needs to put her side of the story about this matter, she will need to apply to the chairperson of the commission and then put her own version, so that if there are those who want to interrogate that version, could have that possibility. And of course, she can then cross-examine Agrizzi. I mean, Agrizzi said so many things playing about Minister Nomvula Mokonyane, basically saying she was being paid 50,000 rand a month for protection. Though at some point there did appear to be a bit of confusion, because earlier Agrizzi had said he was complaining bitterly, saying they were paying Minister Mokonyane 50,000 rand, but she was not doing anything for them. But when we returned from the break, from the lunch break, he basically said, you know what, he needed to correct some of the statement that he had said, basically saying himself and Kevin Watson, the CEO of Bosasa, had actually nicknamed Ms. Nomvula Mokonyane as the Energizer Bunny, because she was very key in making sure that they get protected. So if they wanted anything, so they knew that Minister Mokonyane, would protect them. But Blaine, let's just get a bit of a listen as to what exactly Agrizzi said about Minister Mokonyane.
But I mentioned, and I was very disappointed, that we had spent a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of money had been paid out to Mokonyane with hardly any return in terms of value, in terms of like what happened with some of the other people. And the biggest concern was he indicated that I must be very careful, because she has a lot of clout, and that if he did not do what she wanted him to do, we wouldn't have the protection. We needed her support for the protection from the SIU investigation, the Hawks and the NPA. And in this discussion, I tried to indicate to Gavin that it serves little or no purpose to continue. I remember it vividly. We spoke about it in the car outside her house. And I said, it's not serving us any purpose, this corruption and the payouts that we're making, because it's just getting us deeper and deeper into trouble, and eventually this is what's going to close down the business.
And so, as we were talking about, we have a response from Minister Mokonyane through her lawyers, and I've got it in front of me. And towards the latter part of the statement or the response, it says that our client's right to procedural fairness has been breached, in particular, where the media demanded that she responds to the allegations as set out in the affidavit of Mr. Agrizzi, that the media has a result usurped the role and functions of the commission, and this conduct has adversely prejudiced our client. So hitting out at the commission and the media as well.
Well, Blaine, I think when we start this morning at 10, expect a statement from the judge basically berating the media. Yesterday he said he wanted to make a statement, particularly following the reports that had been circulated about the affidavit of Mr. Agrizzi. And remember, even before, the judge had made it clear that the things that could be reported in public are those really that have come out at the commission. But given that, many of the people had got hold of the affidavit of Mr. Agrizzi, and of course, and then they were able to really look through and check what is expected to say. So that does perhaps give an indication that when we start this morning, I think Judge Zondo will give all of us a tongue lashing like he did before to say, so we must not prejudice anyone.
Yeah.
Mr. Agrizzi, remember, Plain, when he came to the commission, not a single person knew that he was coming. In fact, we were actually duped. We were told that the commission was just going to be dealing with procedural issues, some applications. But when we were right at the beginning of the commission, then the story changed to say, actually, there is a witness, and that witness, because of a number of threats on him, so they had made sure that they had protected him. But one of the things that the judge plain said was that whoever will be implicated by Mr. Angelo Agrizzi will be given a fair opportunity to respond. He said he didn't want anyone to feel that simply because they were not notified on time and then they don't have the possibility of clearing their names. So the reason, I guess, they kept the issue of Agrizzi very, very close, because it had a lot of implications. So he has been threatened a number of times. If he comes to the commission, he's surrounded by an army of bodyguards, and of course the security around the premises is very high. There was a point, you'd recall this, Blaine, where the proceedings had to be adjourned prematurely because the issue of security were raised. So I would assume perhaps that was the thinking of the commission to then make the issue of Agrizzi very, very, very secret. But anyone who is implicated has the opportunity really to then approach this commission to state their side of the story. Perhaps Plain also moving on to another high-profile individual who was implicated, the MP of the ANC, Vincent Smith. Mr. Angelo Agrizzi was basically saying, so they had realized that that parliamentary committee, which was chaired by Mr. Vincent Smith, was quite negative towards Bosasa, and then somehow they needed to meet him. And then that meeting somehow was arranged, and then it took place here in Johannesburg, in Rivonia. And then in that meeting, it was agreed that he was going to be paid 45,000 rand a month. So an amount in later years, Blaine, that then changed to be 100,000. Of course, we also know about the loans that he claims he got from Bosasa, but of course, Agrizzi disputes that. Let's take a listen again.
What are the amounts?
The amounts was for Vincent Smith, 45,000 rand, Magagula, 30,000 rand, Winingwenya, 20,000 rand.
All monthly.
Monthly.
Right. Do you know whether these payments were ever made?
They were made.
How do you know that?
Because I packed them, and initially, Chair, what happened with those payments, they were made by Gavin Watson and Siopela. But then I was trusted, and occasionally, after I'd made up the packages, I was occasionally entrusted to actually make those payments when Gavin was unavailable.
And how did you make the payments when you did so personally?
I would get hold of either Siopela or I would get hold of Vincent Smith and find out where the other people were. If they weren't available, I would hand over everything to Smith, and he would just handle the distribution thereof.
So some serious allegations against Vincent Smith, and Mr. Agrizzi also was testifying about the importance of having people in place in a portfolio committee to prevent, as he says, negativity.
Absolutely. That's why you hear those names, the name of Mr. Makakula, and of course the name of Ms. Ngwenye. So those were part of the portfolio committee because they had realized that if they don't have the protection from entities like Parliament, so they could then be vulnerable to a number of prosecutions. Remember, these people were running basically an illegal activity and they knew it. So somehow they needed to protect themselves from possible prosecution because, I mean, if you are engaged playing in illegal activity, at some point that is bound to catch up with you. So I guess that's why they would put these kind of measures in place to try and get to influence powerful people so that there was no possibility really of then perhaps instituting legal proceedings against them. So as the proceedings will continue, we expect Blaine again to hear more about perhaps other individuals. But before that, and I am aware that the judge will say certain things, perhaps will express his displeasure about how some of the reports were going on at the weekend, because he has made it clear that he doesn't want anyone to jeopardize this commission, because he wants anyone who has information, who knows anything about what happened into the state capture. So if then there are situations where individuals would feel they are not properly protected, and I don't think the judge will take kindly to that blame.
Yeah, we heard just before the adjournment yesterday, Advocate Paul Pretorius alluding to the fact that the Deputy Chief Justice is likely to release that statement. So we'll wait and see what comes out of that. We also heard allegations yesterday, Mzwai, that after Tom Oyane was appointed National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, the amount for the purpose of payment to officials within the Department of Correctional Services jumped from 500,000 Rand to 750,000 Rand per month.
Well, what Agrizzi is basically telling the nation here, he is talking about a Bosasa that was running a corrupt, illegal activity which has a number of contracts with government departments. So basically everything that was being done, somehow it had to have a hand of corruption and bribery. So the issue of about 750,000 Blaine, remember, because they had a contract with the correctional services, and then they were paying correctional services 500,000 a month. But then he says once Tom Oyane, the former SARS boss, who was the commissioner of the correctional services then, once took over, he says that money increased from 500,000 Rand to 750,000 Rand. So whilst we cannot be able to perhaps directly link it to Mr. Moyane, so I guess it's up to whoever is listening to connect the dots if indeed that was meant to benefit Mr. Moyane. But basically what was happening was that that had been obtained by Bosasa with various entities were illegal. I mean, bribery was at the center of it all. So that's why I'm saying, as we continue with this, we would continue to really listen to what exactly went on.
Parktown Johannesburg, day 5 of Mr. Agrizzi's testimony. SABC Senior Political reporter Mzwandile Mbeje. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, the annual meeting of the World